Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinde, 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 Vrindaya Tulsi Deva.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gracias, Madre. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Rajari Yamuna Tira Nachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Na Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Kunja Vihari Ramadhava Kunja Vihari Namo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivacharya Asatara Satta Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Sundar Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Dham Mathura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Yamuna Mai Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Brihad Mridanga Ki Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Hare Nama Sankirtan Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru Angaranga, Gaur Premanande, Hare Hare Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, good morning. Today's class is on verses 5 and 6 and 7, 5, 6 and 7. And this is Canto 10, chapter 49. Verses 5 and 6, which come together, and then What? Was it 7 and 8? What? 7 and 8? Verses 7 and 8. So we'll begin with verse 7. And then I'll read verse 8 also. Please respond to the singing of the verses. Pritatu brataram praptam akruram upashrityatam vacha janma nilayam smarantyashru kalekshana pritatu brataram praptam akruram upashrityatam vacha janma nilayam smarantyashru kaleshana pritatu brataram praptam akruram upashrityatam vacha janma nilayam smarantashru kalekshana. Devorees. Pritatu brataram praptam akruran upashrityatam vacha janma nilayam smarandhyashru kalekshana. Pritatu brataram praptam akruram upashrityatam vachan janma nilayam smarantyashru kalekshana. Pritatu brataram praptam akruran upashrityatam vacha janma nilayam smaranyashru kalekshana. Pritatu brataram praptam akruram upashrityatam vacha janma nilayam smarantyashru kalekshana. Is it okay now? Okay. Please repeat. Prita, Kunti, tu, and Brataram, her brother, more exactly the grandson of Vrishni, her own and Vasudev's 10th generation ancestor. Praptam, obtained. Akruram, akrura. Upashritya, approaching. Tam, him. Uvacha, she said. Janma, of her birth. Nilayam, the home, Mathura. Smaranti, remembering. Ashru, of tears. Kala, with traces. Ikshana, whose eyes. Translation. Kunti Devi, taking advantage of her brother Akura's visit, approached him confidentially. While remembering her birthplace, she spoke with tears in her eyes. And there are no purports by the disciple of Srila Prabhupada, so I'll read the commentaries by the Acharyas, very short. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, this verse and those following now describe events previous to Kunti's description to Akura in verses 5 and 6. So we have to bear that in mind, that this is something that happened before what happened in verses 5 and 6. And verses 5 and 6, I'm going to read them. Kunti and Vidura described to Akrura in detail the evil intentions of Dhritarashtra's sons. who could not tolerate the great qualities of Kunti's sons, such as their powerful influence, military skill, physical strength, bravery, and humility, or the intense affection the citizens had for them. Kunti and Vidura also told Akrura about how the sons of Dhritarashtra had tried to poison the Pandavas and carry out other such plots. So this that we're reading today is prior to those conversations that Kunti and Vidura had with Akrura. Srila Goswami says in verse 7, Akrura considered the words of Kunti important because of her great devotion to Krishna. The word tu indicates she spoke other information. She approached him when he came to her house because he was famous as the Lord's devotee. Her eyes flowed constantly with tears, ashru kalekshana, and Kunti was staying with Vidura. She wasn't staying in the palace. Verse 8, Apismaranti na somyam vittaro bhratarascha Vaginyao bhratrir prutascha jamaya sakya eva cham. And verse 8, when Kunti said, O gentle one, do my parents, brothers, sisters, nephews, family women, and girlhood friends still remember us? Again, there is no report by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. So a couple of very short commentaries by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Jiva Goswami. Do our parents, brothers, sisters, nephews, girlhood friends, and the women of the family remember us? And that is prior to them talking to Akrura about what's going on in the palace, all the intrigue. Jiva Goswami says, do they remember us, me and the children? O Akrura with a peaceful nature because of good conduct and affection for friends. Do Shurasena and his wives remember us? Do the female relatives like Devaki and others with similar character remember us? So she's longing for the information that Akrura can give Kunti about all these personalities that she's missing. Om Agena Timanandasya Gena Jana Shrakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Istam Stapatanyena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahya Tadati Swapadantika E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopikanta Radha Kanta Namasute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishavanu Sutedevi Pranamami Haripriya Vancha kalpataruvyaschā kripa sindhuvya evacha patitanam pavanevyo vaishnavevyo namo namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Everybody. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here we are with Kunti. Kunti is such an important personality, and I'm getting some information about Kunti from the book Teachings of Queen Kunti. These are the 26 prayers in Canto 1, Chapter 8, that Kunti recited to Krishna, about Krishna. And there are 26 chapters, one chapter for each one of the prayers. There is also an important introduction to this book. Of course, this was written in 1962, where Prabhupada hadn't even come to the United States. And in the course of translating the Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1, in chapter 8, he found, of course, we know, these verses, and he translated the verses, and he made commentaries on the verses. And then this book came later with his commentaries and some things that he also had explained, points he had made in classes. So I'm going to read some of the introduction. Who is Queen Kunti? We know who she is. She's the mother of the Pandavas, but she's also the mother of Karna. And we know who Karna is. He's an avid enemy of the Pandavas, because he doesn't know that Kunti is his mother, and he takes the side of Duryodhana. So it comes to the point of all association. Whom do we associate with? And that determines who we are, and that determines how we're moving about in life. There's a Spanish saying, dime con quien andas y te diré quién eres, which means, tell me who you hang out with, and I'll tell you who you are. I have something similar in English, right? What is it? A man is known by his associations, something like that, right? Birds of a feather flock together. So, Karna, the son of Kunti, not knowing that Kunti was his mother, sided with Duryodhana because Duryodhana was very kind and generous with him, and took him under his wing. And then, of course, Karna plays a very important role in the Battle of Kurukshetra. So the tragic and heroic figure of Queen Kunti emerges from an explosive era in the history of ancient India. I'm reading from the teachings of Lord Kunti, teachings of Queen Kunti, and this is, again, the introduction. Kunti was the wife of King Pandu and the mother of 5 illustrious sons known as the Pandavas. We know that Madri had 2 sons, Nakula and Sahadev. And when Pandu died, it was Madri the one who decided to commit sati and burn in the fire with the body of her husband, because she was not equipoised and equal to all 5 children. Her children, Nakula and Sahadev, to her, were the most important. Kunti was equally disposed to each one of the 5 children. And with that mentality, Madri understood that Kunti should be the one taking care of the children. There was some envy and some jealousy there had been when Madri became pregnant with the 2 children, Nakula and Sahadev. But in the course of time, everything was taken care of, and the ladies made amends, so to speak. So there's a lot of dynamic activities. There's a dynamic experiences prior to the battle, during the Battle of Kurukshetra, and after the Battle of Kurukshetra. There's a lot of history. Kunti was one of the central figures in a complex political drama that culminated 50 years ago in the Kurukshetra War, a devastating war of ascendancy that changed the course of the world and the world events. The Mahabharata describes the prelude to the Holocaust as follows. Pandu became king because his elder brother Dhritarashtra had been born blind, a condition that excluded him from direct succession. Sometime after Pandu ascended to the throne, Dhritarashtra married Gandhari and fathered 100 sons. It's a big story and a lot of detail that we don't have time to go into. This was the ruling family of the Kaurava dynasty, of whom the eldest was the ambitious and cruel Duryodhana. Meanwhile, Pandu had 2 wives, Madri and Kunti. Kunti was originally named Prita. Kunti was the daughter of Shurasena, the chief of the glorious Yadu dynasty. The Mahabharata relates that Kunti was gifted with beauty and character. She rejoiced in the law, in Dharma, and was great in her vows. She was a very special personality. She also possessed an unusual benediction, and we know that she had been given the benediction by Durvasa Muni, when she had been taking care of him as a guest. Even though she was born in one family, she was raised in the family of Kunti Bhoj, who was a friend of her father who had no children. So he entrusted he entrusted Kunti Dev to raise Kunti. And it was during that stay with, that's why her name is Kunti, by having as adopted father Kuntiraj, when Durvasha Muni was there and she took care of him. So one of the boons that she got that was very important boon is that she could call on any demigods when she wanted to have children. And she was very young. I don't know exactly what age, maybe I've been 14, 13, when she called on Surya, the demigod of the sun, just to test and see if that benediction was real. But once he presented himself to her, the whole thing had to be consummated. And then she was pregnant and gave birth right away to Karna. But because of the mores of the traditions and the practices of this very pious society, she had to hide the child. And the child was sent in a box down the river and was adopted by Radeya and raised by Radeya. He never knew that he was the son of Kunti. But he had all the characteristics of a Kshatriya, which were manifested as he was growing up. Pandu also had a curse, and we heard that from Mother Krishna Priya when she gave class a couple of days ago, that he couldn't get children. So what happened at that time is that even though he was the ruler after marrying Kunti, he gave up the throne and moved with Kunti and Madri eventually to the forest. And it was there in the forest where the children were born and where they were raised. So his brother Dhritarashtra, even though he was not the rightful heir, he was older, but he was blind, so that disqualified him from being the ruler of the kingdom, took over the kingdom. And Dhritarashtra was not necessarily an evil man, he was a very weak-minded individual. And he was so affected by the presence of his children and so affectionate to them that even though his children were not good company, he was influenced by them and became very, very eager to protect the children and to keep the throne, even though he knew very well that the throne really belonged to the oldest child of Pandu. When she was married now to Pandu, and Pandu had requested permission from the sadhus to beget children through this blessing that Kunti had, she was given the blessing and the permission to call on different demigods. So she gave birth to a boy when she united with Dharma, Yamaraj. As soon as the child was born, a voice with no visible source said, "This child will be called Yudhisthira, and he will be very virtuous. He will be splendid, determined, renounced, and famous throughout the three worlds." Then they had another child, and this child was with Vayu, the demigod Vayu, the demigod of wind. And Bhima was born. The voice said, some supernatural voice up after the death said, "This child will be the foremost of all strong men." Then again, Pandu consulted with the sages and to get permission for a whole full year, for Kunti to have a full year of austerity. And at the end, he said, Indra, the king of heaven, said to his wife, "Indra, the king of heaven, is pleased with you, so now you can conceive a child from him." So Kunti invoked Indra, and the child born was Arjuna. When the child was born, the same celestial voice boomed through the sky and said, "O Kunti, this child will be as strong as Kartavirya and Shivi, who are two powerful kings, and as invincible in battle as Indra himself. He will spread your fame everywhere and acquire many divine weapons." And then Madhu bore 2 sons, as explained, from the Srini Kumaras, Nakula and Sahadev. And then all 5 of them, were known as the Pandavas, as the sons of Pandu. When Pandu died, because Pandu got attracted to Madhuri and wanted to have connection with her, forgetting that he had been cursed, immediately he died. And I explained, Madhuri took the side of her husband and have sati. After the death of Pandu, the sages that were living in the forest brought the young princess and Kunti to the Kaurava court at Hastinapur, which was the capital city of the kingdom. And the boys were raised there in royal style under the guidance of Dhritarashtra and the noble Vidura, Pandu's half-brother. But smooth transfer of power was not to be, we know that, because Dhritarashtra wanted to keep the throne, even though he understood that Yudhishthira was the rightful heir. Duryodhana was plotting against the Pandavas. They were very envious of the Pandavas. Pandavas were the sons of demigods. They were very powerful, very beautiful, extremely gifted, very talented, very intelligent, and very much like warriors. So Duryodhana, the cousin, and his brothers, 99 brothers, were all very envious and tried to kill them for several times in various ways. But they escaped death because they were protected by the Supreme Lord. Duryodhana eventually cheated the Pandavas out of their kingdom in a gambling match, chess match, as we know. And the Pandavas, by that time they were had been married to Draupadi, was abused by the Kauravas, and the Pandavas themselves were forced to spend 13 years in exile in the forest. So the Pandavas returned to Hastinapur to retain their, get or reclaim their kingdom. But Duryodhana refused to let go of the kingdom. And that's after 13 years. And remember that I also said that during that time, Kunti was living with Vidura. She didn't stay in the palace. And then, of course, what happened after that was the visit of Akrura, which is what we're dealing with now. And eventually, Krishna himself came as an emissary to the court of Dhritarashtra to advocate in favor of the Pandavas and peace, because the war appeared to be something that could not be stopped. And it was not stopped. So many details and so much information. So I was going to talk about something that was brought up yesterday, which is the purpose of, and this pertains to us because all of that I read and explained are details about the history of the Mahabharata and in the backdrop of the Battle of Kurukshetra. Now, as far as we are concerned, we can hear all these things, we can read all these things. They are full of stories and full of also of lessons for us to learn. Remember, the Bhagavad Gita is part of the Mahabharata. And I thought that I would read from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, the last several verses, starting with verse 34. And there is, I'll mention to you why I decided to do this. Chapter 4, starting with verse 34. And this is about knowledge, because we know the items of knowledge that are presented by Krishna in chapter 13, verses 8 to 12. And I remember that in the reading yesterday, very clearly, Srila Prabhupada explained that all of these wonderful qualities that are called the items of knowledge have no relevance unless they all lead one to develop his relationship, her relationship with the spiritual master and with the Supreme Lord. So humility, pridelessness, all these qualities are used in the service of becoming more and more Krishna conscious by following the instructions of Guru and the direction of the Supreme Lord. in so many references from so many books. So, of course, we go to verse 34, which is, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. And this process of Krishna consciousness is not something where we are forced to act in certain ways, because how can anybody be forced to learn to express love? Love is something that comes instinctively when a person is motivated and inspired. So we have to be motivated and inspired to follow all these rules and regulations, but not forced. That won't work. And the reason is not because somebody tries to control us, but because it is for our own well-being. It is for our welfare that we are engaging in acts of devotion and following rules and regulations for the purpose of purifying our consciousness. With a purified consciousness, we can develop the ability to see clearly and to be able to discriminate and make the right choices. And that is called spiritual intelligence, not material intelligence. Material intelligence is okay. We have to live in the material world, but we have to develop spiritual intelligence. And it begins by taking shelter of somebody who is a self-realized soul, and we learn from him by inquiring submissively and by rendering service. The next verse, having obtained, this is a very important verse. We don't talk about this verse very often, but listen carefully. Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. Which one of us would go back to thinking the same way when we were totally in the dark? Now we have some awareness and some knowledge on who we are and who the Supreme Lord is and what the purpose of our existence is. For by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, they are mine. There's nothing that exists that is not Krishna's or Krishna himself or his energies. So then we realize that everything that is in existence is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord, his jivas, everything material, everything animate, all the inanimate beings, etc., which is a principle that religions in general do not understand. It's a big blocking point that doesn't allow people to make further progress. I'm talking about people who are serious about practicing their religion. Of course, Prabhupada never said to people, don't practice your religion, but do practice your religion and be committed to the teachings that you accept as truth. But we know that unless we understand, and Krishna says that in chapter 2, that we are eternal, that every living entity is because the presence of the soul is there, covered by different bodies. Unless we understand that, then that's called the process of self-realization. Then it's very difficult to make further progress. The next verse, even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. So we come from so many different backgrounds. Some of us had really, really serious, defective, sinful backgrounds. Some of you may have simple background, peaceful and saintly backgrounds. But it doesn't matter. Once we get on the boat of transcendental knowledge, Krishna says, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. So here it is that all this transcendental connection through hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, in so many ways are burning to ashes all the reactions to previous material activities. And Krishna says so many things in the Bhagavad Gita that are extremely encouraging and full of hope, because he's making promises and he's telling us, if you act in this way, this is going to happen. In this world, this is one of my very, very favorite verses in the Bhagavad Gita. This is verse 38, chapter 4, Bhagavad Gita, verse 38. Na hi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate tat swayam yuga samsiddha kale natmani vindati. In this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time. So these Pandus were imbued with transcendental knowledge. They are cousins of Krishna's, they were best friends of Krishna, and they exhibited all these transcendental qualities. 39. A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge, and having achieved such knowledge, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. I was looking at an article about women who are so enterprising that whatever they dream of, they make it into reality. And we talked about people who are very highly placed, some women who are very highly placed, and they have this idea that this can be accomplished. And they say, one of them was saying, I am not greedy, but I am extremely determined and very tenacious. And the key to her success, and the other lady was concurring on this point, the key of success is tenacity, is perseverance, is keeping going and going and going no matter what happens. So a faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge. And having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. We should listen to what Krishna is saying to us in the Bhagavad Gita. 40. But ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain Krishna consciousness. They fall down. For the doubting soul there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. And also, we were talking to somebody last night on Zoom about this man has been gifted with a great gift of faith, because he hears others talking about Krishna consciousness and with a lot of doubts that actually stops them from really becoming immersed in the process, in this sweet process of the practice of Krishna consciousness. But for the doubting soul, there is happiness never in this world nor in the next, but he has the faith. One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus is not bound by the reactions of work or conqueror riches. So this is the role of knowledge. But what kind of knowledge is this? Spiritual transcendental knowledge. Therefore, this is the last verse, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. So we're talking about transcendental knowledge, spiritual knowledge, which is giving us the opportunity to be connected to the process and very quickly achieve this our goal, to be transferred to the spiritual atmosphere. And the spiritual atmosphere doesn't have to be a different place. It could be the material world where our consciousness is totally spiritual. And this is because of the tenacity to, no matter what happens, we just stick to the process of devotional service. So I'm going to stop here. I think we have maybe half a minute left, and see if anybody has any corrections or comments or realizations they would like, questions they would like to ask or share. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, thank you for your attendance. All the devotees of Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai and all the devotees of the Lord Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Shri Radha Golokananda Ki Jai.
Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Maravindanalaya Taksham Bharavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Akom Vikamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Pasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami 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 Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Which one do you want to do?
Page 9. Vaja Huremana, page 9. Vaja Huremana, Sri Nandanandana, Abhaya Charana Ravindare. Pajahure manase nandanandana avaya charana ravindare. Durlava manava janama satsange. Durlava manava janama satsange. Tarohe Baba Sindure Tarohe Baba Sindure Shita Atta Bhavata Varishana Edina Jamini Jagire Shita Atta Bhavata Varishana Edina Jamini Jagire Vipale Sevino Kripana Durajana Chapala Sukala Vala Gire Chapala Sukala Vala Gire Edana Jana Putra Parijana Iteki Ache Parati Tire Edana Jana Putra Parijana Iteki Ache Parati Tire Kamala Dala Jala Jivana Talamala Bajahu Hari Padani Tere Shavana Kirtana Sarana Vandana Pada Sevana Dasyare Shavana Kirtana Smarana Vandana Pada Sevana Dasyare Puchana Sakichana Admadi Vedana Govinda Dasa Vilasare Bajahure Manasi Nandanandana Abhaya Charana Ravindare Durlava Manava Janama Satsange Taro He Baba Sindure Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Nittai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gora Hari Bol. Nitai Goranga, Nitai Goranga. Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana. Jaya Sachinandana Gaura Hari. Jaya Sachinandana Gaura Hari. Jaya Radha Golokananda Radha. Golokananda Radha. Golokananda Sri Radhe. Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Sri Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Sri Radhe. Radhe Radhe Radhe, Jaya Jaya Sri Radhe. Radhe Radhe Radhe, Jaya Jaya Sri Radhe. Radhe Radhe Radhe, Jaya Jaya Sri Radhe. Jaya Jaya Sri Radhe, Radhe Radhe Radhe, Jaya Jaya Sri Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Sri Radhe. Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Sri Radhe. Gaur Premanande. O mind, just worship the lotus feet of the son of Nanda, which make one fearless. Having obtained the rare human of birth, cross over the ocean of worldly existence by associating with saintly persons. Day and night I remain sleepless, suffering heat and cold, wind and rain. For a bit of flickering happiness I have vainly served wicked and miserly men. What assurance of real happiness is there in all one's wealth, youth, sons, and relatives? This life totters like a drop of water on a lotus petal. Therefore you should always worship the lotus feet of Lord Hari. Govinda Das longs to hear the glories of Lord Hari. Chant his glories, constantly remember him, offer him prayers, serve his lotus feet, become his servant, worship him, offer him prayers, serve his lotus feet, become his servant, worship him, serve him as a friend, and completely offer him his very self. Shri Govinda Das Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai.
Chandrika Varnam Vijavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipanam Pranamrita Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapita Niyamita Smarane Kala Etadrishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishami Hajjani Nanuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Suhishuna Amani Namanadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadishikamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Hoitaki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishameva Vambudau Kripayata Vapada Pankaja Stita Duli Sadrashim Vachintaya Nayanam Galadashu Daraya Varanam Gadgadaradaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahaneba Vishyati Yugayatam Namishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahena Me Ashlisha Vapadamratam Panastumam Adarshanam Marmahata Karotuva Yatatava Vidadatu Lampato Mat Prananatastu Saeva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you've invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself to be lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen to the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name. When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand and end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm feeling like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Sri Shastika Ki Jai. And we'll be reading Prabhupada Lilamrita this evening between 6 and 7 here in the temple. So please join us or watch it on Mayapur TV. Haribo.